And I think of that a little bit differently than perhaps Steinbeck meant. Because for me, the truth that I learned more than any other truth was that I mattered. I had value. That was the truth that I came away from those teachers with. In America today, I'm sure that you experience the same thing. Education is education, I think, everywhere. We continue to have these things coming along. They're like, oh, this is going to be the trick for education. We're going to do this now. And so now it's called the Common Core curriculum. The Common Core. Some people think it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to America and that our students are going to be critical thinkers, and others say it's a vast government conspiracy and the government's just trying to brainwash our children. But you know what I think? I don't pay attention to that anymore. Once you've taught 27 years, you can start tuning things out. I give you permission. I think it's ironic, the name, Common Core. Because I think of this core, our inner being, our inner core. You have it. I have it. Every one of those children we are with every day, they have a common core with me. And they've taught me that. They have taught me that. But not only did I learn it from them, it started here. It started right here. I'm paying back, paying forward. I'm paying forward everything those people did for me and my common core. That was really heavy, wasn't it? That was deep. It's always hard to tell that story. So now, you're going to see why I'm doing this. I'm not going to make you sit there the whole time. You're going to do something with me, okay? We're going to make it rain. Get your hands free, okay? Now, when I come to you on this, when I start, you do what I do, okay? That's your job. Your job is to wait till I get to you to do your part. Don't ever stop doing it. Do it the whole time until I say you're done, okay? Here's a test. Okay. Ready? Okay, so I have learned as much as I have taught my children. Excuse us. Okay. Wait. I have learned as much as I've taught. This is me, my first year of teaching. I have big hair. One thing I've learned is that children care. They care. If you look, this is a can of applesauce and a can of corn. One year, my 7th graders were doing a service project, and they were bringing food for the firefighters next door to our school. Sorry. I get so excited. And every day I would come in, my desk would have lasagna and soda, donuts, cookies, kularakia, all kinds of things. One day came in, those 2 cans were on my desk with the other massive amounts of food. And I was like, that's unusual. With a student that brought in, the young man, 7th grader, that brought in those cans, he came over and he said, Miss Lee, my family doesn't have much money. We get most of our food from the food bank, but we wanted to give something. That's why that's there. At that same school, which, by the way, had an 87% free and reduced lunch rate, a poor community. My students, I say we, they decided one Christmas season that they wanted to raise money for Heifer International, where you donate livestock around the world for communities that need it. And they made a goal of $700. $700. In that community, that's rent for a month. So I said, don't you want smaller? And they said, nope, we want to buy a flock of geese and we want to buy a goat. Okay. They began raising money. It came to the day before it was due. We were still short. The next morning, Elijah walks in with this baggie full of money. He said, Miss Lee, I mowed lawns all summer. Colorado's hot in the summer. I mowed lawns all summer. I saved the money to buy Christmas presents for my family. We had a family meeting, and we decided we want to give the money to Heifer International. We had more money than we needed then. I apologize that this is a little hard to see, the lights. I want to tell you about it. Every year on the final exam, I try to throw in something funny to make students laugh because they're all stressed. So this year, my coworker and I asked them to name 4 people they didn't like. And they couldn't be somebody that we all knew. It had to be, people that they knew, but we didn't. And what they would give somebody they didn't like, if they could, for Christmas. This one student who rarely ever speaks called me over and said, Ms. Lee, I don't know of anybody I don't like. That's the most he's ever said to me. I said, well, Aiden, just be original then. Be creative. Whatever you put, I'll be happy with. So he wrote, this is what I would give to people I don't like. I don't like the hypocrite. I would give him a role model. I don't like the egoist. I would give them a broken mirror. To the ignorant, ears to hear all with no mouth to share it. To the suicidal, a single wish granted. I do want to tell you his sister is very suicidal this year, as I know that the family's struggling with that. And that to the suicidal, a single wish granted. Powerful. So I could go on and on telling you stories of things my students have done to show me their capacity to care. I mean, I honestly say this, they're like my heroes. I think when you give children the opportunity to care, they're not going to disappoint you. Over and over, that's proven true in my 27 years of teaching. I've also learned a lot about perspective. I was teaching in a school with over 52 different languages in the school. And I was out on playground duty one day, and this adorable little Asian boy threw a snowball. You know better than throwing snowballs. It's against the rules. Stop being so disrespectful, young man. You know better. Tell me you won't do it again. Go apologize right now to Tony. I mean, I'm getting all worked up. You're going to go to timeout. Before I could send him to timeout, Tony came over. Tony had only been speaking English for 7 months. He came from Mexico. He said, oh no, Miss Lee. He no English. He brand new to this country. I will teach him. So the little boy that speaks Spanish and the little Asian boy walked off with their arms around each other. And I'm the teacher, right? I had this slide up because this is a little boy right here from Bosnia. He had a twin named Dejan. They came from Bosnia, and Dennis and Dejan were third graders, didn't come to school. They had never been to school in Bosnia. So they just hadn't adapted yet to our culture. We think, we had these rules that people are not used to about education. So we were teaching them gradually, but the bad thing was, the boys lived in a really dangerous neighborhood. So not only were they not in school, they were on their own all day in a dangerous neighborhood. But another problem was that they became more dangerous than anybody else because they began setting fires everywhere. They became like the neighborhood arsonists. So these boys wouldn't be in school. We knew we would hear fire engines coming pretty soon, right? So finally I told them, I said, okay, if you boys make it to school every day for a month and never show up late, you're here every day, I will take you to my house and we'll have a big cookout in my backyard with my family. They never missed a day. Never missed a second. So I, true to my word, I called the parents in and said, this is what I would like to do. And we had a translator, and the mom said something, and I was like, what? The translator said, she wants to know if your house is safe. Now I'm thinking, me? She lives in this dangerous neighborhood, and she thinks my house is dangerous? But then it dawned on me, the perspective part. They came from Bosnia stepping over dead bodies. Where she lived was safe compared to where she'd come from. Perspective. Perspective. I've learned it from them. I have also learned that show and tell is important to all ages. I told you I taught from little bitty to way up. They all love to be seen. They all love to be known for who they are. You see Chase painting the ceiling. Simmons playing the ukulele, and Maddie, she's trying out her part of being a future nurse. She was writing a script. They love to be seen for who they are, outside of that book, outside of not turning your homework in. They want to know that you see through all of that to this. What is it? That core, that common core. In my classroom, we laugh a lot. I love to laugh. And I've come to believe that when I walk by a classroom and I hear a lot of laughter inside, there's probably a lot of learning going on as well. Because learning can be fun. Steinbeck writes about how it's not always fun, but it can be. And I believe, I love this. In fact, let me go back to it. Laughter is not the opposite of productivity. I think laughter and productivity and learning do belong together. I'll go back to the story really fast. So, I'm trying to tell this. I hope not to offend anyone. I want to tell this in an appropriate way. You probably know of the hand gesture that people show to me they're not happy with you. It's one finger. You know, the hand gesture. So there's a slang term for that called flipping off in my country. He flipped me off. So I used to tell my little bitty children, flip off the projector, and they would. I got to secondary. And one day I'm doing something and I said, oh, somebody flip off the projector. And I turn and the projector's still on, and I turn around, every student in the class was flipping off the projector. And I did just what you're doing. I laughed so much. I told them to do it. And sometimes I think laughter and letting it be funny, rather than going immediately to consequences, can be the best way to deal with discipline problems. Because let's face it, kids are funny people. This, again, I'll apologize ahead of time for the slide, but I love this. This is a little girl who had just immigrated from Nepal. She was very homesick. Only knew a little bit of English. She was not in my class, but she had friends who were. My students, every day when I get to school, there are students waiting by my door before school. They eat lunch in my room, and they're in my room. I have to shoot them at the end of the day. They're in my room all the time. So she started coming in with her friends. And I was always busy. I would be working on lesson plans, grading papers, and so I was always very busy. But somehow, at the end of the year, Ariadne wrote me this note. Ms. Lee, I don't have any classes with you, but I love to talk with you. Enjoy. You make fun. And I hope I will have class with you and make more fun. What stood out to Ariadne? Not that I was making her practice English in my class at lunch, the fact that we laughed together. Laughter doesn't have a language. There's no barrier with language. There's no language barrier with laughter. You will probably feel sorry for me when I tell you this story. In Georgia, the American Civil War occurred in a great part of my state, my home state. And so I love teaching about it. So when I moved to Colorado, where there was no Civil War on their land, I loved teaching my students about it. So I was telling them about the 1864 Battle of Atlanta. And they knew I'd lived in Atlanta. And so I promise you, I had them in the palm of my hand. I was like, the cannonballs, and the horse and buggies, you know, and the soldiers, and the people fleeing with for their lives. I mean, I stopped. It was silent until one student said, seriously, "Were you scared, Miss Lee?" In case you didn't catch it, 1864. Yeah. Perspective, that was his perspective. So I obviously enjoyed that very much. I remember laughing so much they thought that I wasn't going to stop. Walt Disney himself said, "Laughter is no enemy to learning." Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Laughter is no enemy to learning. In fact, I think it's the best friend of learning. Now, we've talked a little bit about the relationship and kids caring and perspective and humor. I want to talk a little bit about giving breaks. I did the rain activity on purpose. I had just hit you with a pretty heavy story, hadn't I? That story still makes me I choke up when I tell it. I gave you a break. I needed a break. So, I believe firmly that we need to give our students breaks to let learning settle in. Okay, y'all, what color is that? What do cows drink? They drink water. Ah, you got it? Okay, so I just made you switch your brain up again. I just made you switch your brain. I gave you a break. You're going to remember what I talked about better now because we've taken a break. We've switched our brains off. Now, there's so much out there about movement and learning. I could have done a day of slides with all the research, but I'm not, because I learned from the source. My students have taught me that movement is important. Do you know, in one school system that I taught in, they outlawed recess for everyone except for 4- and 5-year-olds. There was no play. Too much time taken away in play, not enough in learning. In fact, when we went on field trips, we had to give them our field trip, we had to say this is where we're going and why. We had to give lesson plans with it to tell them what we would be teaching on the bus as we traveled. These students who never got out of the area, they couldn't see the scenery because they were supposed to learn from me. I never did it. So that school system, guess what their scores did? Nope. They thought, oh, we're maximizing learning time. Their scores went down. And then I took my students to the school board meeting and they spoke about their recess and how they miss it. We got it back. And it made a difference. It truly made a difference. So, I want you to start watching for MeGo. MeGo. I think of that as the time that my eyes glaze over. You know, my brain is full. I can't take any more, teacher. My eyes glaze over. MeGo. Because it happens. It happens. So, I want you to start thinking, MeGo, I see MeGo happening, brain break, and you're going to have a chance to prove it in just a minute. I love this picture. Love, love it. These are my 7th graders, and you see there's 3 boys and 1 girl there. And we were doing a service project. A new business had moved into town. And so we were landscaping for them and pulling these great, huge vines out of the ground. So we're working, and I'm like, where are the kids? I'm the only one here. I turned around. They had connected all the vines, and we're not playing jump rope. They were playing jump vine. Again, what are they teaching me? Need a break, teach. Need a break. So, Einstein himself said, play is the highest form of research. We're going to put it to the test right now. In just a little bit, I'm going to put some music on, and I'm going to throw a globe out at you. I'm throwing the world at you. You may not let it drop. You must keep it in the air in this auditorium. I have 2 globes. There are 6 more coming at you. The whole time the music is playing, you must keep the globe in the air. Keep the world spinning. So make sure your hands are free. And get ready. Ready? Are you ready to get started? Yes, we are. Okay.